Jazz Forum Arts in Tarrytown, New York, is Westchester's premier jazz club, and the club is celebrating 40 years. And its founder, trumpeter, producer, and promoter, Mark Morganelli, is celebrating his 70th birthday. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Doug.
This is wonderful. We had an exclusive sports jam back in 2013 where we learned all about your wonderful sports. You're a Knicks fan. You're still running. You've been an accomplished runner for years. But today we talk about the music and we talk about Jazz Forum Arts. Jazz Forum Arts brings you the world of jazz from internationally renowned musicians to emerging artists. The aim is to showcase the diversity within the genre, fostering an environment where the truest expression of the music can be celebrated in all its form. The audiences experience progressive and bebop, Latin and Brazilian, world music, rhythm and blues, New Orleans, traditional, swing, and contemporary jazz. Jazz Form Arts is, for a long time, just for the enthusiasts and those who are experiencing the music for the first time. Building and budding jazz aficionados are interested. Jazz Forum Arts is committed to education, and that's why we have brought Mark back to the WBGO Journal to learn more about this 40th anniversary of Jazz Forum Arts. Can you believe it's 40 years?
I can. Because, Doug, actually, I started the Jazz Forum Club in Greenwich Village 2 months after WBGO started. So you guys started in April of 1979. June of 79, I started the Jazz Forum, which ran at 50 Cooper Square for a couple of years and then a couple of years at 648 Broadway at Bleecker, where we collaborated with WBGO to do Big Apple Jazz live satellite broadcast to NPR back in the day. So that was 46 years ago. Then in 85, when I met Ellen, I moved to the Upper West Side and formed the nonprofit Jazz Forum Arts to produce the Riverside Park Arts Festival, which ran from 85 to 97 for 13 consecutive summers of free concerts.
What did Ellen do for your 70th birthday?
She surprised me and took me into New York City, and we went to the Met. And a friend of ours is the director of exhibitions there, a high school chum, actually, Dan Kershaw. And he took us around to the Italian Renaissance art exhibits. And also, we had a lovely lunch in the restaurant there on the top floor, which I'd never been to. And then we went to a hotel where we had done a benefit for Jazz Forum Arts in Midtown. And I was completely surprised after that to have a dinner at a Sicilian restaurant with my family, including my granddaughter.
That's wonderful. Your granddaughter's 2.5, and you
Yes,
already have her interested in the trumpet.
I do. Every time we go out to Manhasset, Long Island, I bring the pocket trumpet and I try to get her to buzz into the mouthpiece. She likes taking the mouthpiece off and running around the room with it, but I do get a sound every once in a while. And there's the cat. There's Mookie.
Hi, Mookie.
Named for Mookie Wilson.
Gotta love it. You're a big sports fan.
Absolutely.
We're gonna talk about the Knicks a little bit later because they're having a terrific run that could end soon or could continue depending on how they do against
Absolutely.
the Indiana Pacers. You've had such an amazing career, Mark, in the world of jazz. As you know, as I mentioned at the top, as a trumpeter, as a promoter, and a producer. Take us back to the first time you thought, "Hey, I could play this trumpet."
Well, I started in fourth grade, so that was 1964. And I took the violin the first day because my best friend David Wasserman took the violin. And now David comes here with his wife to the Jazz Forum in Tarrytown. Can you believe that all these years later? And
Unbelievable.
I got the violin home, couldn't make a sound, was very dispirited. My dad said, "Don't worry, take it back, trade it for a trumpet. Harry James, Louis Armstrong." That was from my dad. And here I am 61 years later playing the trumpet.
You go back to a time where you had a part of the Bucknell Jazz and Rock Ensemble in the
Absolutely.
mid 70s. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I went to Bucknell as a chemistry major. We know where that went. And So the first week of freshman year, I auditioned for the Bucknell Jazz and Rock Ensemble, a 23-piece big band, and with three vocalists and a vocal arranger and a whole bit. And I was one of two freshmen admitted, and along with Ron Moore, a tenor sax player. And my life changed at that point. We were rehearsing 2 days a week and playing gigs every weekend for alumni and various functions all over Pennsylvania and various places. And I wound up being a lead trumpet player, music directing the band, and a business manager for the band. I booked the band at the Montreux Jazz Festival and brought us over there in 1976, and we recorded. And the next week, we came back and also recorded as the opener for Sha Na Na at Wolf Trap Farm Park in Vienna, Virginia. And that turned out to be the first album I produced, 1976.
That's fabulous. And, you know, you were young, 21 years old to be at the Montreux Jazz Festival
Yeah.
and then working with Sha Na Na. Is there anything you can share about that time period that you found special that we would enjoy?
Yeah, certainly. The Sha Na Na one is good for a good story. We were backstage at Wolf Trap and we're talking to the folks from Sha Na Na, and they say to us, everything you play sounds the same because it's the same instrumentation. So we said to them, everything you play sounds the same because it's the same three chords.
With Bowser being at the bottom of them.
Yeah, with the cigarette pack in his sleeve.
You gotta love that. Through the years, what has meant more to you, playing the trumpet, being a part in your albums, producing or promoting?
Playing. I'm sorry I took so long.
But
There's
you know, usually
nothing like playing music. You can do it by yourself and enjoy, but when you start playing with other musicians and then communing with audiences who are receptive and enjoying your artistry, it's a whole different experience.
it's usually the same kind of answer I get from actors when I ask them, do you want to be on stage, television, or film? And they'll go, well, definitely on stage because it's that interaction that you get as a performer. I'm sure that's the same for you. You play all kinds of music. You specialize in Brazilian and music and things like that. What does the audience give to you when you're on stage?
Well, they create a vibe. There's an ambiance there. There's a receptivity. There's interaction. If things are going well, oftentimes I will be clapping and playing percussion, and the audience is swaying or snapping or clapping back, and that we feed off each other. And that's in the best scenario. I just came from a tour of Italy for a month in March, and I played a weekend at a club in Rome called Gregory's, and I also conducted a master class in jazz and Brazilian music there, and I had a dozen students, young folks from Rome, and I went through a history of jazz and Brazilian music and had them all clapping, on the various rhythms to the various rhythms, and so that was wonderful.
You've been to many countries promoting and fostering this music. Is that important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an international language. Oftentimes you cannot converse with other musicians because they speak a different language, but you can call a tune or start playing something and just listen. And or as Yogi Berra once said, half of it is 90% listening.
You probably don't know this, but the hat that I'm wearing today was Bob Porter's hat. So Linda
Wow.
Linda gave this to me following Bob's passing. Your connection with WBGO goes back a long ways with Gary Walker and many others.
Absolutely. Gary did the debut for my first record, which was recorded at the Jazz Forum in 1982. And Jim Luce was the MC for that performance. And Dorthon Kirk and I connected when I was trying to promote my artists and try to get people to come to the first Jazz Forum at my loft at Cooper Square. And I called Dorthon and I said, why don't we do ticket giveaways and try to get people that way? And she wrote me a letter saying, we tried this and it really worked well, and we're going to make it part of what we do. That was 1980,
Wow.
one year into BGO, maybe within, not even in the first year, within the first year of WBGO.
I was speaking to Danny Melnick just this week about how we've come back from the pandemic and how basically 2023 things started to really come back.
Yeah.
For you to survive that time period with Jazz Forum Arts means that you really have something special.
Well, thank you. I agree, and I feel good about it. And we were helped by the shuttered venue operators grant. That really helped a lot, and also our individual donors and patrons, who continue to believe in us, and most importantly, our sponsor Montefiore Einstein continued to sponsor us during the pandemic because we pivoted and started doing live streams, first from artists' homes and then from the club, including 6 premium live streams with Kenny Barron Trio, Bill Charlap Trio, John Pizzarelli, Julius Rodriguez, my Brazilian band. And we did 100 live streams in that like year and a half plus of the worst part of the pandemic.
It's impossible to pick out one moment for 40 years of the club, but can you touch upon maybe a couple that have meant the most to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the club itself here is only 8 years old. The nonprofit is 40 years old. And when I founded it in 85, I asked my friends at the time to be founding board members, and they said yes. Wynton Marsalis, Dizzy Gillespie, David Amram, Dorthon Kirk, Gary Giddens, Dan Morgenstern, Reverend John Garcia Gensel, and Bruce Lundvall. And Dan Morgenstern. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. So when I look back at all of the things we did, for me personally, a money loser, but something that I'm immensely proud of was the 3 years we went to Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and I rented Butternut Ski Basin to produce the Berkshire Jazz Festival, where I had multiple stages going, a main stage with everybody from the Duke Ellington Orchestra to Gato Barbieri to Cassandra Wilson, Terrence Blanchard, Diane Reeves, Paul Winter, to the Upper Lodge, where we had emerging artists and jam sessions and Preservation Hall Jazz Band and arts and crafts and food vendors and educational components for kids. I thought it was great, but unfortunately, people stayed away in droves.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, we're talking about performances, but Jazz Forum Arts is about education as well.
Absolutely.
What has been the most impactful comment you've received from a younger person or a younger artist that you said, yeah, what I'm doing is making an impact?
Well, our the gentleman who teaches the Jitterbugs early childhood education programs that we do here at the club and also in the summer for free before some of our summer concerts outdoors. Neil Spitzer, tenor saxophonist, plays a lot of different woodwinds. He was the director of instrumental music for 18 years at the elementary school here in Tarrytown called Washington Irving School. And I went into the school 9 straight years to do a one-day residency called Washington Irving Jazz Day, WI Jazz Day. And one day I was at the coffee shop here in town, and a little child, maybe a 4th grader, 5th grader, said, "You're the guy that comes into our school. WI Jazz Day is my favorite day of the year."
Wow, that's
I mean,
beautiful.
it was like, wow.
I imagine in Terrytown, when you visit the local coffee shops and people do recognize you, you've been there, you've been a part of the community, an important part of the community, that also has to make you feel very special.
It does. We really established ourselves here when I first moved out of the city and to Dobbs Ferry, and 6 months later started producing jazz at the Music Hall here in Tarrytown, a beautiful 1885 historic venue with the best acoustics anywhere, in my opinion. And I mean, we had Dizzy Gillespie's last public appearance there. We had Ahmad Jamal there. You can go on and on. All the great artists: Chuck Mangione, Dave Brubeck, Pat Metheny, Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, Bobby McFerrin. So 150 concerts over 22 years there. And between that and starting the outdoor summer concerts, moving them up the river, as it were, from New York City, from Riverside Park to Westchester, has had a real big impact on the local community. This is our 25th year of doing free concerts in Westchester.
You're a musician, you're an educator. I've been talking about this a lot lately with artists. Jazz is different than a lot of other type of genres because it seems like giving back and promoting the music, learning about the music, teaching the music
Mhm.
is so much more prevalent in jazz than it is in others. And you have like, Stephen Van Zandt and his Teach Rock Foundation, but in general, the students, especially in New Jersey and New York, really get the best when it comes to jazz education. And you mentioned how you like to give back. Are we seeing a whole new generation of jazz artists that one day will be mentioned with the names that you've just talked about?
I think so. I mean, we're already seeing it with someone who's maybe a decade younger than me or so, Christian McBride. With the Jazz House Kids, and really positively influencing the next generations of potentially of jazz artists, but certainly just to engender a love of the music with young people. And we just met here yesterday with a wonderful drummer who's from Jackson, Mississippi, grew up in New Orleans and is now splitting his time between New Orleans and New York. That's Darian Douglas. He's 40 years old. And we're trying to talk to him about maybe involving him here in our programs artistically and educationally. So, yeah, I mean, that's just two examples. There are plenty more of people out there doing it. Uh, uh, Ron Vincent and his wife Nancy Kennedy. Ron was the drummer for Jerry Mulligan. They teach our jazz forum student ensemble for 5th to 12th graders. And we have two sections of that as well. And then we involve Anthony Tony Maselli, one of our board members, who is the head of the jazz bands in Westchester. And so we're starting a pro-am ensemble this month or in June, where we have students playing alongside educators. So we're starting a few new programs as well.
Could you have done any of this without your wife, Ellen?
No. She has been instrumental, as it were. And, we co-founded Jazz Forum Arts, but she's had many other careers. And when we decided to sell our house in Dobbs Ferry and buy this building and transform it into the Jazz Forum with 90 seats downstairs, she really took the helm and is now the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of the nonprofit and the general manager of the club. She also curates the rotating gallery of contemporary art here. So it's we have an entire staff, and a chef, and so marketing teams, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and we've really grown the organization tremendously since we decided to make this move 10 years ago.
What a great partnership. You also keep yourself, as a musician, but I'm sure it goes way before that. You still run.
I do. As we talked about the last time, I had run the Boston Marathon in 1974, took off 30 years to get into jazz, and then came back and ran New York City Marathon in 2005, 7, and 10, and 15 half marathons. And now, having just turned 70, a buddy of mine who's also a runner, and his birthday is a day before mine, Rob Lane, said, when I hit my birthdays, I try to do a 10th of my age that day. So in New York City the other day, when Ellen took me in for my birthday, the next morning I ran from Midtown to the Williamsburg Bridge, over by Katz's Deli, through Washington Square Park, back up to Midtown on Fifth Avenue, 7 miles, a 10th of my age.
Wow. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
That's some serious running still. And they say 70 is the new 50, so you're proving that, right?
it feels good. I mean, I'm very blessed to be here and doing what I love.
Another thing that you love is sports, and you love the Knicks, and they're having quite a run. Last year, they had a terrific run. This year, they're with the Indiana Pacers in another wonderful battle that's going on. Do you find yourself being the coach of the Knicks as you watch these games?
Ellen and I are huge Knicks fans, and what I've been doing lately because of scheduling is recording the game and watching it a couple of hours later. So I don't want to know. I stay off social media and I don't want to know what happened. So I watch the game. I fast forward. Like I don't need to see every foul shot, you know. And so we're basically screaming at the TV and high fiving each other as the game goes on. And it's been so exciting. And I've gone to games with my son, my older son Ian, and so we totally into it, and as well as into the Mets because they're having a great run this year as well. So it's been fun.
They certainly are. The Mets could be in the World Series, and who knows, with some couple more good games, the Knicks could be in the NBA Finals. So
It's
it's a
amazing.
great time to be in New York. I know
Yeah.
Spike Lee was disappointed he had to be at Cannes Film Festival and miss the first two games at the Garden. So I'm sure that he and so many others, there's so many stars that love the Knicks and everything. It's been great. Jalen Brunson is amazing,
Oh,
and Carl Anthony Towns had his parents on WBGO years ago. His mom
wow.
unfortunately passed away during COVID, but wonderful people. They
Yeah.
were just great. So really, we're rooting for Kat and for Jalen Brunson. They are two terrific performers. But it's a real team this year. Kind of reminds me of when you had the championship team in the Knicks. Everybody can score.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as a 13-year-old kid watching the 68-69 season with Willis Reed, Dave DeBuscher, Bill Bradley, Earl the Pearl Monroe, Clyde Frazier. I mean, that's where I started with the Knicks, and it was a total team effort, and I've stayed with them all this time, but like as much as I was into Carmelo Anthony, he didn't seem to be that much of a team player. And so, you definitely need the team aspect to go all the way.
Throughout the years on Sports Jam, we've talked to athletes and musicians about the team aspect. When you're on stage
Yeah.
as a performer, you are part of the team. And I know that the Miles Davis Celebration Festival, when I was talking to George Cables and Dr. Eddie Henderson, that what they loved about Miles was the fact that he was a team player on stage.
Hmm.
Did you learn anything from Miles's work?
I did. Uh, the biggest thing I learned is space, to have space and not to play too many notes. And I met him twice. I met him once at a after a black music event at they gave him an award, and he played with his band at Radio City. I think it was 1980, and he was sitting next to Cicely Tyson in the after party. I was having a drink at the bar with Herbie Hancock, and I excused myself to go meet Miles. And I actually said, "Hi, Miles, Mark Morganelli, friend of Al Foster." He goes, "What?" I said, "Friend of Al Foster, Mark Morganelli." And we just lost Al. You know, he was just a genius and a wonderful person. So anyway, then a couple, 2, 3 years later, a friend of Ellen and mine from high school was producing the Dick Cavett show, and Miles was his guest. And I brought the first Miles album I ever bought, Bitches Brew of all things, 1969, 1970. And I brought it, and after the filming of the Dick Cavett show, I went backstage and he looked at me, he put his hand over here, and he goes, "Girls." And so he wrote to Mark and drew a picture of a trumpet player and signed it. And that's up on the wall in the pool room here at the club. So I am continually getting inspiration from Miles. And my latest album is called 4 Miles, that I recorded in Italy, in Torino, on a tour a couple of years ago, all Miles Davis 1950s material.
You mentioned the passing of Al Foster. He passed
Yeah.
away this week on Wednesday, May 28th, at the age of 82. just another of the jazz giants who are slipping away from us, Mark. Thus, the need to keep this music going because we've lost too many of the giants.
It's true, and that's why I said before I'm so blessed with to have good health and to be able to run and play music because a lot of people, have had their lives cut short for one reason or another. And thankfully, not too many people subscribe to what Charlie Parker did and died at age 34. But it's just it behooves everyone to take good care of yourself. And I mean, as an example, in November, we're going to host David Amram's 95th birthday with him playing with his band.
Well, you kind of just answered a question I was just going to have. You've played and worked with so many greats, so it's not like, what can you do next? But is there something other than the David Amram concert that you really want to put together for Jazz Forum Arts that you know you have to do that you haven't had the opportunity to do yet?
Well, some of these educational programs are very important. I'm also interested in having the nonprofit take over ownership of our building if our board so approves. And that would give the nonprofit, after 40 plus years, its own home base. As it is now, Ellen and I bought the property and renovated the property and lease it to the nonprofit, which operates the club. So it's a different paradigm, different model. So I think that will be the next move, and then also hand off the baton to other folks that can do the artistic programming, have vision for the future, and come up with new programs themselves. Because I feel like I've done quite a bit for 46 years here.
It's been an amazing run. 4 miles, you mentioned. You're
Yes.
recording. Uh, are you anticipating a new release soon? And if so, when do you find time to do it, Mark?
Well, this was my sixth album, and I really want to do something akin to what the late Roy Hargrove did, which was flugelhorn and strings. So, basically mostly ballads is what I'm thinking. Because I did a whole double CD of Brazilian music, and some of those are more balladic, if you will. But I would like to do a flugelhorn and strings album, kind of somewhere in between what Clifford Brown did with strings and what Roy Hargrove did with strings. And I had wanted to produce a similar album of Claudio Roditi's, but that never happened for me and him. Claudio and I collaborated on a number of projects, several of which I produced. But we talked, and he mentioned Carlos Franzetti, and I actually had a conversation for about an hour with Carlos Franzetti, who's an amazing orchestrator and arranger. So there's that in the fire, and we'll see.
You were one of the most well-rounded people that there could ever anyone could ever hope for. Obviously, Ellen agrees. But when you think about it, you're a musician, you're a businessman, you're an educator, you're a father, you're a grandfather, and everything has worked out, Mark. So happy 70th birthday
Ah,
and congratulations on 40 years of Jazz Forum Arts celebrating this wonderful anniversary and going strong. Thanks for joining us.
thanks so much, Doug. All the best.